one of the other features of lookups in a broad sense is this other field type called calculated lookups. And what that does is takes the features of calculated fields, combines them with the features of a lookup field, and creates this new field type we've called calculated lookups. A lot of times, as I described just a minute ago, in an inventory control scenario, that's very useful because you want to modify your running totals for your item master, for example. It's probably a little bit less obvious in an asset tracking scenario, but I've gone down this road, so let's use this continuing example. One thing you might want to do is keep track of the number of times you've scanned this asset in this audit, just to make sure you're not scanning things multiple times, or you know, maybe finding two assets with the same ID, which would be a very critical type scenario that you'd want to catch. So what I could do now is modify our asset master table a little bit, and I'm going to add a field. I'm glad I left these placeholders here, and I'm going to call it scan count. Okay, I'm going to make that a number data type, and that's it. And what we're going to do is return that as a lookup result, increment it, and then write it back. So what we have to do then, we have it existing in the asset master, so what we want to do is go back to the asset scans and create a field called scan count, and another one called update count. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to make our scan count read-only. I am going to make this one a lookup. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I want to use the returned value in the calculation for the update count. You could actually combine this into one field, but sometimes I like to present it as two, just to give you an idea of how the calculations could work with multiple fields. So again, we're going to create a lookup option here. We're going to define our asset master as the source session. You can see it automatically updated my field list to show you the scan count. I'm going to join it by the asset and the asset ID. In this case, I'm not going to be updating source or pending if not found. And if the asset's truly not found, I'm going to return a 0 because I know this is a numeric field. And if it's not found, I know, hey, that it hasn't been counted before. And that's pretty much it. Pretty vanilla lookup for this guy. For the update count, I want to make the data type for this guy number. And here's where the difference is. The field type, instead of being a lookup, I'm going to set it up to be as a calculated lookup. And you'll see that you have two tabs now presented, one for your lookup options and one for your calculated options. So for the lookup options, it's going to be very similar to the one you just saw. I'm going to be defining it to asset master. I'm going to take the scan count. I'm going to join them by our asset ID. In this case, I am going to update source. I am also going to return a 0. So what's going to happen is when I update my value via the calculated field, it's going to write that new value back. And in this case, my calculated option is simply going to be add. And I'm going to add my scanned count, which is returned, the previous scanned count, and I'm going to add a constant value. I'm going to add a constant 1 to that. So every time I scan it, it's basically going to be incrementing by 1. Now, you'll notice that we have the form designer here. These fields are added. They would certainly function without being visible, but it makes for a much less impressive demo if I don't show you these fields added. So what I can do is just kind of slide this up a little bit maybe. Take a field here, shrink it a little bit, add another field here. Add a label. Add another label. And again, I apologize for my artistic look. I'm assuming you guys can do a better job on these things, but this should present pretty well. The other thing we have to do, of course, is set our data source fields for these guys. So this guy is assigned to our scanned count, and this guy is assigned to our new update count. Okay, and let's just widen that a little bit. And let's shrink this a little bit. All right, I think that should be good. Now let's save this, and again, we're just going to deploy. Again, quick deploy test cycles. Once this transfer is over, we can then jump into our emulator and start TracerPlus. Let's go to our view data just to clear out our previous scans. Okay, let's go ahead back to data entry. All right, so let's scan our asset. A001 seems to be a favorite of mine. You see our current count is coming back blank. That's because it wasn't initialized on the database side with anything, so it's returning a blank value. That's fine. That's treated as a 0. You can see that our new count is taking 0 and adding a 1 to it. Typically, you might initialize this to be 0. It's kind of up to how your data is laid out. So what will happen is we'll submit this. We can go ahead and scan maybe A002. Should be the same effect. Oops, I lost my down arrow there. Let's try the enter key. There we go. That's just a little bit of a delay. Okay, so the same thing there. So now we can go back and say A001. And some companies would have a policy in place that, hey, you don't want to be scanning these things twice. Something must be wrong if you're seeing the same asset ID twice. So you could even set some validation on these scan counts. And what you see is, hey, we already scanned this one. If I submit this, our new count using this great calculated lookup field is now 2. And if I were scanning it again, you're going to see it go up to 3. Like I said, I'm sort of cheating a little bit by imposing this kind of functionality in an asset audit, although, the use case could be valid. For inventory control, that's a wildly popular feature. If you want to be updating your either depletion or addition of your inventory based on either receiving or shippings, respectively, that's a very valuable tool to have. So you're not only recording your receiving transaction against this PO and this item and this quantity, but you're also updating the live availability of your inventory by that same amount. And that's pretty much it. And again, the next process would be to go through ODBC link and do a data transfer. I guess I can do synchronize all. It's not. You can just see that both processes now, session progress 1 of 2 and 2 of 2 are happening. The effect is that we're really only interested in the transactions at this point anyway, but you can see now at the bottom of these guys, well, you don't see the scan count, unfortunately. So let's go ahead quickly and add field 5, which I don't even have a field name for, and field 6 to these 2 additional fields. Go back and synchronize, and we can synchronize all again. And we should grab that data. And one thing to note is that those records still exist on the device because we chose not to delete them. There is an ODBC configuration option to delete after transfer. In this case, I'm lucky we didn't turn it off because otherwise I wouldn't have seen that data transfer over. So here you can see our running counts. Here was our current count, and here was our incremented count. And again, I mapped them to sort of nonsense fields because I didn't have those pre-set up. But if those fields were set up as appropriate names in your database, you would just map those as you see fit. And that's it. So here's all your running transactions as at 5:05 this afternoon, all the way down to 5:30 now. I'm not sure that clock is exactly accurate, but it's pretty close. And I think that's it. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to communicate those to us via the feedback options. If you have any questions on using the emulator, there is a link on our knowledge base found on TracerPlus.com to download the emulator and actually some steps on how to install it and use it. Okay, so that's it, and I appreciate you guys signing on, and thanks, and keep an eye out for the next webinars as they're announced.